Guruji, I will do.
Yes.
Om Agajanana Padmarkam Gajananam Maharnisham Anekadantam Bhaktanam Ekadantam Upasmahi Trayambakam Yajamahi Sugandim Pushtivardhanam Urvarukamiva Bandhanan Mrityor Mukshiya Mamritat Adityaya Somaya Mangalaya Budaya Cha Guru Shukra Shanibhyascha Rahave Ketave Namaha Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Thank you, Harini.
Guruji, actually my kid is listening your class very keenly, Guruji, every time.
Oh, so this might be someone who knew astrology in the past life. It's possible. Camera is here. No, but you have to remove the filter. If you come here only, you can.
But okay, it's all right.
Hi, Manoj.
Hey. Okay, 19 people are there. Good.
Okay.
So, continue.
Okay. So what we are going to do today is like, it's basically trying to gather as much information about the 8th house. It came up in yesterday's discussion with Sai Prahlad. We are trying to understand the 8th house from as many angles as possible. Because the 8th house is a very tricky house. It's not completely bad also. It has the possibility of transformation, the 8th house. So what we're going to do, each one of you can contribute some points about the 8th house from but basically only from the classical textbooks. Now that we have Kishore has some, he's having some ready reckoners, I think. He's having some extra books. And all of you can also add to what is being discussed. Okay, so don't feel shy. The agenda is, we are going to work on looking at all the permutation combinations and also maybe the scope of and maybe limitations of the 8th house. Okay.
Guruji, I have a doubt. Are we going to talk only about the 8th house or also the 8th house lord?
Your, the audio level is very low from your end.
Now is it okay, Guruji?
Yes, it's improved.
Okay. So are we going to talk about the 8th house or the 8th house lord also?
Everything, anything concerning the 8th house from different permutation combinations, whatever we can gather from any textbook. And as it is being said, let's try to document it. For those of you who are not actually participating by discussion, make use of the opportunity to type it out in the chat section. And thereby you can contribute whatever you want, or even help us in documenting. Okay.
I already opened a few sources for the 8th house since I was going to be, but I will mostly be typing so that it will be easy for documentation. And when time permits, I will be using the microphone.
Yes.
I'll be busy typing and pasting there.
Sure.
Yeah.
See, for this, what methodology we will use is by looking at what are the effects of planets in 8th house, and also by looking at whatever is being discussed using the 8th house, either the lord of the 8th house or in any other aspect, we can try to find the inner meaning of the 8th house. Okay, that's a very simple idea in astrology. Like if you read something and if you know the effects, we will know that it most probably connected to that house or to that planet. So for example, Saturn in the 8th house, long life, stated by Sage Bhrigu in Bhrigu Sutra, gives a lifespan of 75. Saturn in the 8th. But is that always true? You don't have to know anything else about that Saturn, that if 1/12 of the world's population must have Saturn in the 8th house by the statistical approach, then that many people will have minimum lifespan of 75 years. Is it true? So this is one, these are some of the things that we're going to try and see whether we can come up with ideas. Because I have met, I know many people who had Saturn in the 8th and died much younger. At least 3 of my relatives had Saturn in the 8th, but they didn't live till 75. So astrology, we'll have to admit, it is basically not based on one-line rules. It is a combination of many things like blending. What will be the final taste of something is composed of many things at one time. It will not be just one combination. But then there is no other opportunity for us but to build it brick by brick. And for building it up brick by brick, the final building may be big, but it consists of smaller bricks. And the smaller bricks are actually these individual one-line rules. So at the same time, you should not say, no, I cannot use one-line rules at all. It is like saying, no, I won't use the bricks to make the building. It's impossible. So the smaller rules, the one-line rules, are the basis of astrology. But your conclusion, the final building, is not the brick. It is something else. It is a combination of many things. So who's going to start with the whatever you know about the 8th house? One point each. We take turns.
Sudden events, sir.
Okay, sudden events. Okay, now that when you say sudden events, please document it, and let's see how many times these words come up in the in whatever we read. Okay, so let's start like saying 8th house is sudden event, and then look out for statements that actually say sudden events. Okay, so let's do that. Okay, like this, whatever you want to say about the 8th house, please say, mention it, and type it out immediately.
8th house represents death, sir.
Okay. Actually, it is not the house of death. It is Ayush. It is the house of longevity. About longevity, something is being discussed. But because longevity is being discussed, on the flip side, we are indirectly discussing death. Because there are some important keywords that could be used for the 8th house, and one of them is surely transformation. Okay, and sometimes transformation can be sudden. You made a change and you never can be the old one again. You are not anymore the same. It's like the moment I started reading astrology, I can't go back and say I don't know astrology. I have made it. I have transformed. The moment I read Bhagavad Gita, I have transformed to that extent. You cannot say, no, now I go back to the original state. You cannot undo that. Okay, very good. So like this, Guru Sitaraman has said, sudden exposure to new avenues. Maybe the word sudden, we will look out for hints, whether it is really sudden. Okay, very good. I think we are starting on a good note. Let's hope we build it up.
Yeah, 8th house is misery, strife, disease, loss,
okay.
sorrow.
Okay, can we say, how do we know that? How do we know that? That it is all the bad things.
I mean, these are listed in
Huh?
Bhrigu. It is listed in BHPS, right?
No, it's the 12th from the 9th.
No, not that. I mean, let him complete it. You are saying, are you referring to Dashadhyaya and saying in the Dashadhyaya always the 8th house, most of the things are always only concerning the negative side of life? Is it that?
Yeah, I'm not sure it's Bhrigu or Brihat Parashara, but it is all documented in one of these two books.
Okay.
The characteristics of houses.
Okay. I'll do one thing. I will open up Vimshotri Dasha and there are still some mistakes. I have to do a lot more editing. I have not completed it.
I think he is stating from Bhrigu Sutram.
Yeah, Bhrigu, 8th house, longevity or span of life, also called house of death, inheritance, legacies, wills, insurance, pension.
Actually, that is not Bhrigu Sutram. It is G.S. Kapoor's collection.
Collection, yes.
It is not Bhrigu Sutram. Okay.
Correct.
Bhrigu Sutram starts a little later. But most of it, I think, if you want to really get the extensive list of things connected to each house, it's actually Uttra Kalamrita by Kalidasa. I assume that Kishore already has that book, Uttra Kalamrita. Okay, in Uttra Kalamrita, you will find very extensive description for each house. And out of that, G.S. Kapoor must have taken this. Though luckily for us, the Bhrigu Sutram contains these pages, it is actually not part of Bhrigu Sutram itself. Even the description about the planets is not. I mean, we should say thanks to Dr. G.S. Kapoor for giving us those details. So what I'll do, I'll show you the Vimshotri Dasha. See, the approach is always like this. You see, if Surya Dasha is going to be bad, if Sun is in Neecha Rashi, or basically trying to say it's weak, and then it is also in Neecha Rashi, is in 6, 8, and 12. And from that, since we are discussing today 8 is usually bad. We'll, for the time being, forget all these other things, like be associated with malefic grahas, or with the Lord of the 8th house. If the Sun is connected to the Lord of the 8th house. I mean, these are all simple ideas in astrology. If you know that somebody is connected to 6, 8, and 12th Lord, that planet is likely to be spoiled. How do we know this for sure is, if you take the opposite of it, like Kendra Trikona connection leads to Raja Yoga. And obviously, connection to Dushtana Adhipatis, 6, 8, and 12 must make it worse. So, and you can see, as you expect, just go through what are the possibilities, indications once you have the Sun in the 8th house. In its period, anxieties, loss of wealth, punishment from the government is because the Sun rules the government. Defamation, Surya is the indicator of name, fame, status. Opposition by the kinsman means your own people. Distress to father because Sun rules father. Inauspicious happenings at home. Wherever we, actually the Sun has got lots to do with the home also. That's why housewarming is best done Surya Nakshatras, especially Uttara Falguni, not Kritika, and Uttarashada. Okay.
So we have to see it from Bhava chart, right?
Yeah, all of them is Bhava chart only. Okay. Inauspicious happenings at home, distress to paternal and maternal uncles. Sometimes we may not be able to clearly understand why he included paternal uncle, maternal uncles. Maybe in those days they had this father figure. They were very important people in our lives. Today things have changed. Okay. So throughout this text, wherever you notice the bad things, it will be like 8th house is connected. One of the other words for 8th house is Randra. Randri So. Eso means is the Lord of the eighth. There are so many interesting rules about the eighth house. One of the things that the eighth house is always connected is assassination, political assassination. A sudden event that kills a person is usually eighth house. Okay, very different from other types of events. So death by accident is most probably connected to eighth house. It is like saying nothing happened so far and suddenly it happened. You never expected it at all. So throughout Brihat Parashara Shastra, this Dashadhyaya, wherever you see the number 8, immediately you can see certain negative results are given. Okay, so I'll stop sharing here. This is just get started. So, yes.
So what happens if Sun is the Lord of 8th house?
We'll try to understand that. What happens if the Sun is the Lord of the 8th house? Actually, it is incomplete. We still can't say much about it. Because the final result is always placement and who are with the Sun and so on. So to begin with, we will talk about planets in 8th house and we'll take turns and then try to understand the 8th house itself by such methods. Okay. And we should also bear in mind for every ascendant, sometimes the 8th Lord is not declared as a malefic. There are exceptions to that. So you'll have to be very careful. So for some lagnas, the 8th Lord is not giving the 8th house result. Instead, it's giving the other house result. So we'll start with Sun in the 8th house. Anybody wants to read from Brighasutram?
Yeah, I can read, Dhilip.
Yes.
So Brighasutram says that if the Sun is in the 8th house, the native will get few children. He will suffer from eye diseases. In the 10th year, he will suffer from a head injury, but he will not get this if the Sun is aspected by a benefic. The native will have meager wealth, and the domestic cattle, cow, buffaloes belonging to the natives will be destroyed. He will suffer from chronic ailments of the body, but he will be famous. If the Lord of the 8th is associated with strong planets, the native will become owner of the land of his choice. If Sun is exalted in Aries or in his own sign Leo, the native will be long-lived.
See, so many conditions are there. That actually makes astrology complex and also a difficult science. Sometimes we can see some logic, and sometimes we cannot. We should be ready for this. Or maybe we can indirectly derive something about, for example, when you say, if the Sun is in the 8th house, Alpa Putra, less or fewer children, it reduces the number of children. And we should also consider the Kaldesh Patra, because in those days there were dozens of children born, and maybe during such times, few children could have been an issue. Today, most of us are having only few children, only 2 children, maximum 3. Eye disease. Anybody wants to say something about why eye disease?
Aspecting 2nd house.
Yeah, good. Aspecting 2nd house of Netrasthana. So from that he picked it up. He had used that. And then the sun is also the karaka for, eyesight. Because sun is light and light is only sensed through the eyes. And that is the reason for that. So like this, at one shot, you can get some information about 8th house. So from this, 8th house has some suffering type. Maybe in those days, if others had more children and you had less children, that was one kind of suffering. And eye disease is definitely in those days, since after sunset, it was always darker, and a good eyesight was a necessity to survive. Very important. Can anybody guess why in the 10th year you'll suffer from a head injury? Why the head?
Sun represents head, sir.
The sun represents the head. The most important thing is in your head. Right now, as I talk to you, you're only looking at my head. And all these photos we see here is only the head. Right? We are so much the head. And of the solar system, so much is the sun. The biggest thing is the sun. The head is very heavy. That's why in water, if you lift your head, the body will go down. The rest of the body will go down the moment you lift your head. But if you submerge your head inside, the body can easily float. Your legs will come up. So the weight of the head is so big. But why injury? So from this,
eighth house. Sorry, that's, I thought, one of the significations of the 8th house.
Yeah, correct. So from this, we know that the 8th house may relate to injury. Already we have a eye disease, an injury, still 8th house related. The native will have meager wealth. Why? See, I think this is basically because
second house aspect again, I think.
Yeah. Good planets, bad planets, natural. Krura Graha. Sun is definitely a Krura Graha. So a Krura Graha aspecting the second versus a Shubha Graha aspecting the second. Always in astrology, one of the simple idea is if a house gets aspected by benefic, that house has more nice things to express. If malefics are involved, either by occupation or by aspect, it somewhat is in trouble. But as usual, we will have to finally get the approval of the ancient books, the authors, to make a statement. And why cattle, cows, buffalo, etc. is only because these are assets. And second house is assets. And now comes the next slide. He will suffer from chronic ailments of the body. Okay, he will be famous. That part we may not be able to, if you can try, but I never understood why you would have said famous. Okay. But chronic ailments. So the 8th house connects to chronic ailments. If the Lord of the 8th is associated with strong planets, if the Lord of the 8th is associated with strong planets, the native will become owner of the land of his choice. Now, okay, we have a planet in the 8th house, but then where is the Lord? Is he with strong planets? Maybe I think he's hinting at, is it well placed? Usually an idea in astrology is the dispositor idea. The Lord of that house under question, if it is very well placed. The native will become owner of the land of his choice. That is, he will buy land. That's what it actually means when you say will become an owner of the land of his choice. And then you should, as usual,
land come? Where did land come here? I mean, what's the point?
Again, second house, assets.
Second house.
Yeah, it is actually taken from second house. So you can always cross-check these things by looking at second house immediately, like what if the second lord is in the fourth house or fourth lord is in the second house, second lord is in the ninth house, and so on. It's all about assets. Okay. Just a sec, because sometimes students call me at this time. Now, a very important point, the last line. If the sun is exalted or in its own sign, then it will be long-lived. He has not so far mentioned about short life anywhere, but suddenly comes up with long life if such a sun is well placed in the 8th house. Okay. Can you guess what could be the ascendant if sun is exalted in the 8th house?
Tula.
Tula?
No, not Tula. Sorry.
Yes, Virgo.
Virgo.
Kanya.
12th Lord exalted in 8th house.
Yeah. So then it will become 12th Lord in the 8th house. Is 12th Lord in the 8th good?
Medium span of life, sir.
Very good. Medium span of life. But in this case, I mean that, okay, now the important point about when you read 12th Lord in the 8th is a separate sloka where the 12th Lord could have been any planet. Correct? But in this case, it becomes the sun. So I think because others might know this, if the 12th Lord in the 8th is a medium span of life, no, don't say medium span of life, because this sun is different because it is exalted or in its own sign. So now you understand the errors we might make when you read the planets in different houses. Because when you read planets in different houses, you don't actually know what is a planet. It could have been any planet, the 12th Lord in the 8th. I hope everybody have understood what I'm trying to say. Any doubts regarding the last few statements I made?
Can you please repeat that?
Okay. See, the point is, we started off like this. If sun in the 8th house, he never said anything about lifespan until now. And then suddenly, he was actually hinting at danger to life by saying chronic health problem or eye problem and such things. And then suddenly he says, if the sun is exalted in Aries or in his own sign, then it will be long-lived. So here is introducing an idea because he is also aware that for some people, it might be connected to a combination that is pertaining to lifespan from some other rule in astrology. So what we did was, when we said we know the sun is in the 8th house, and then when we know it's exalted, it has to be Kanya Lagna. Otherwise, you can't have it in the 8th. So it becomes the 12th Lord in the 8th, and then I don't know who Sridevi said explained the 12th Lord in the 8th.
12th Lord in 8th is gainful and speak affably.
No. Always talk only the relevant things because now the question is from why did
medium span of life.
Medium span of life. So from medium span of life, he's saying, don't worry because this sun is exalted. Okay. So when you read the Lord's houses in different houses, you must keep in mind the dignity of the planet concerned. And if the dignity is bad, you should give more importance to the negative statements. And if the dignity is very good, like exalted, own house, and something like that, then you should say, oh, not own house. I'm talking about Mula Trikona or some special things, etc. Then whatever is stated of that, either it is positive or negative, you'll have to adjust it and read it. The reason is 12th Lord in the 8th, you could have 12 types of 12th Lord in the 8th. That 12th Lord in the 8th, you can keep changing it. It won't be the same planet. And in this case, it happened to be Sun in the 8th, exalted. Therefore, he says, there is long life, even if there are other defects, only because. So it is an indirect hint at also the fact that the Sun in the 8th house may decrease longevity. Are you with me in this? When he says no, if it is exalted, it will give longer life, long lived. Yeah. Is it not an indirect way of saying the Sun in the 8th will reduce longevity?
Yeah.
I mean, these are the methods.
Maybe the principle of a malefic in the 8th house is also
correct. Yeah. So one of the things I learned from Braj Jataka Varamira, very clearly says we should be extremely intelligent and smart and looking out logically, etc. So please do not think that the rishis will tell us everything in the like a spoon feeding type, one by one. They expect, see, can't you understand even this? When I say this, then it actually implies that when I'm saying long lived, you must understand that when I say dirgayu, you should say no. Maybe then if it is not well placed and is afflicted, it will reduce lifespan. So the length of our lifespan is connected to the 8th house. Therefore, it is truly called Ayush, because Ayush is what? Longevity. How much longevity do I have is not a negative term. It is a positive term. In that way, 8th house is really truly Ayush and not the house of death. Are you able to understand what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
The 12th from that house is the Marakasthana, which is 7th house. And 8th house is only about lifespan. But it gets connected because when you want to assess the length of a lifespan, it will automatically end with death. Therefore, there's an indirect referencing to death. Okay. And Kishore wants to help us out with any other text about Sun in the 8th so that we can find out if whatever was not mentioned by Brigu, anything else is available. Or not only Kishore, anyone else amongst this group of students? Anybody has some points to say?
I have a question.
Yes.
So the seventh aspect, unlike any other planet, I believe the seventh aspect of Sun is always considered positive. I'm not able to.
No, you want to know why? You want to know why? Because most of astrology, in terms of what is happening to us, is almost like a measurement of light on anything. So when you have moon opposite the sun, the moon is in full moon.
Full moon.
So if Jupiter is opposite the moon, opposite the sun, actually you can call it full Jupiter.
Right.
You can call anybody in front as full, because a full light will fall on it. And you know the surprise, the outside planets, which is from Earth's point of view, the outer planets, Mars, Jupiter and Saturn, when they come opposite to the sun, you know what state it is in?
Retrograde.
Retrograde. Yeah. And you know already in Shatbala calculation, retrograde planets are stronger.
Yes, sir.
So having the sun opposite, there will be a lot of light on that planet. And that light comes back to the earth. And so whoever, so therefore planets in the 7th from sun becomes stronger.
So the logic of this eye disease,
Okay.
although it's aspecting the second house, instead of being positive, it is negative. Is it
No,
because
there it is
you're
not.
looking at the light directly?
No, there it is not. There is nobody there to reflect the light. So we are not having anybody in the second. We are not talking about, we're talking about a house there. Whereas I thought you mentioned, I thought you were hinting at what if a graha is there in the opposite side, whether we consider it as good or, so that particular planet will have all the light. So these are two different things. When I said second house is connected to eyes, it is because second house is Netrasthana. It's only the house. The house can be empty. There is nothing for you to reflect.
So we are telling the signification of the house will be adversely affected.
Yeah.
The planet is not.
Yeah, because there's nobody there. Okay, there's
then
nobody
how
there.
did the land thing come? That's another thing, because that should be adversely affected. Why is he acquiring land?
No, I think he's hinting again that in the beginning he says the native will have meager wealth and domestic cattle, cow, buffaloes, etc. And all that will get destroyed. He's actually saying it gets spoiled. But only later on, if the Lord of the 8th is associated with strong planets, the native will become owner of the land of his choice. So the first idea that malefics aspecting the second is bad has been maintained by Bhrigu. Okay.
Okay.
So these are finer points. As we go through, we will find out, can we learn more by just observing a pattern across the planets? How does it turn out to be? We will go through that and then try to come back. Okay. Yeah. Nice.
Guruji, I just wanted to add from Phala Deepika that when it says that from the 8th house, the sun will aspect the second house, which represents the right eye. Thus, the sun's placement in 8th house will certainly affect the right eye. And then it also says that the person can be blind also with sun in the 8th house. Sun represents light. And when he's placed in the 8th, the worst dusthana, he can deprive the native of his eyesight.
Okay. We'll definitely keep that in mind. Because, Bhrigu Sutram, G.S. Kapoor did a good job by quickly giving a 2-line, 3-line statement from other books like Brihad Jataka. He says defective eyesight. So that has been common, right? So you can go through other things like what you just now read, Phala Deepika or Saravali, etc. There are many common points. Sometimes you find some fresh points coming up in later authors' books. Maybe it was there in the overall astrology world, and a rishi might say something and only that gets documented. Another rishi will say something else. And so that could have been in the what we call like a database type moving around India. And when somebody writes about it, the message could still be ancient also. We need not say that later authors made it up. It could have been in the area, in the place, and it could have cascaded down from the Mahārshis themselves. We cannot quickly come to conclusions that it is totally created by the authors. Okay. I'm just considering those possibilities. I'm not saying it must be like that. So in the moon in the 8th, anybody wants to read? Moon in the 8th.
Danger with water, sir.
Now let's read it out. Okay. The native will not have much of comfort from conveyances.
I can read if you want.
Yes.
The native will not have much of comforts from conveyances. Watery places like ponds, tanks, wells, etc. will be sources of danger to his life. He will be separated from his relations on account of his wife. If the moon is in her own sign or exalted, the native will be long-lived. he will have medium span of life if the moon is waning.
Okay. Anything that catches your attention?
Connection between water and
Yeah, so that is a new idea. I mean, it's not new idea from our class point of view. That's something fresh, a fresh idea. So there, I think he spoke about eyesight. He spoke about destruction, because the sun is considered as a malefic, and he spoke about head injury and so on. Okay, but now he changes.
Very logical.
Yeah, very logical, beautiful. And he says suddenly, but it is also from this you can understand the source of danger for our life could be found out from the eighth house. Okay. And eyesight is not a joke. If you have bad eyesight, it could be really, in those days with, as I told you, with less light in the night, a person is, very vulnerable without eyesight. He may get killed by a tiger or a lion or whatever. Okay. The chances increases. A good sight is definitely a great asset if you want to live longer. But very difficult to understand from where the idea of conveyance came. Anybody wants to suggest from where the conveyance?
Guruji, moon is the lord of the fourth house from Kalapurusha.
Kalpurusha, yeah.
Very good. Very good.
Nourishment, sir.
Yeah,
That seems
okay.
to be the first statement even in sun, for that matter.
Okay.
Lack of progeny.
Progeny. Very good. Yeah. Okay. So see, now we are learning, because the sun is in Kalapurusha, the fifth lord, right? From the Lagna.
But also moon is mother comfort.
Moon is mother. Okay. So comfort from conveyances. Will not have much of comfort from conveyances. Watery places like ponds, tanks, wells may be a source of danger to his life. Anybody knows of, someone, relatives, friend circle, somebody had moon in the eighth and they really had an experience with from danger to danger in water?
Guruji, my childhood friend's brother died of water accident. I mean, he went into the pond and then he never came out.
Okay.
But I don't have his chart.
Okay. You can check it out.
I know someone, Guruji, who was moon in the 8th, but they actually are very attracted to water. Nothing has happened yet. So I'm curious if it pulls them in that direction, or they want to stay near the beach or a lake city.
Yeah, in order to one day fulfill this condition, it will be waiting for an opportunity also. Okay, so it might take them to the water. How do you have danger from all this? Is to give them a liking for it and then first taking them there. Yeah, I'll be waiting for an opportunity. Okay.
I know one of my friends, like moon in 8th house. He is Gemini ascendant, sir. And he met with an accident during the rainy season. I mean, during rain. And he didn't even know how he was driving during that time. And somehow he got saved out of it, sir.
Correct. I mean, he doesn't say exactly, I don't know what is the, maybe only, because he's used the word Gandaha. Ganda is like a threat, not really the end of life. Okay. If you want first-hand proof, I have moon in the 8th house. And
Guruji, you said about the tsunami story, remember? The tsunami clients.
Yeah, tsunami clients were, those were, that was something to do with 3 clients who were all on the beach on that day when the tsunami came. So I understood that when something is there in fate, In order to fulfill that, it will always take us there somehow because it has to happen. I still feel, I've always been saying this for all my 30 years in astrology. I feel that whatever is there in astrology is like whatever happens to you in life is connected to your karma. But if you're reading the horoscope part and trying to figure it out, I used to think it is not completely still, like a prefixed thing. So, but at the same time, I have to accept that something is predictable also. So I came up with this idea. It is like what you did with what you got. I was fascinated by my own statement. What you did with what you got. Very nice. So it is like in a journey, what we call life, when prarabdha karma starts off, you take one baggage and get on. And then go on that trip. Think like you're carrying a bag behind on your back, on your shoulders. And then you have to travel the entire distance with whatever is there in the bag. You cannot get any other thing other than what is given in the bag. But then what you do off it or with it is not completely prefixed. You might use it to the best of your abilities. You might not use it at all. How many of you have shirts and dress in the wardrobe? Maybe you never use it. Your car can go at 180 kilometers, but you never drove beyond 60. That means you're not driving it at its full capacity. You may say the reason for that is I don't have good roads. In India, I don't have good roads. In a foreign country, you can go very fast. I still remember when I was working in Maharishi Mahesh Yogi's ashram, I saw actually the car showing 230 kilometers. I still can't believe it is true. And there they say there's no speed limit and everybody drives at that speed. Okay. So what happens to the same car in India? The best of cars, the more expensive cars, they just can't drive faster than an auto rickshaw in some places, which means you don't have an opportunity. So then I came to the conclusion that it is all about what you finally did with what you got. That's the best way to explain everything. And you cannot do something that was not provided in the bag. You need that as the basis. So in my moon Mahadasha, I had frequent cold. I used to get cold very often. The first rain finished. I start shivering. And I had the moon Mahadasha very young in life. So I was a very odd boy out in my family where as soon as the rain hits my body, I'll completely become different. Can you imagine my father used to buy new, what they call the sweaters, where in Madras, you never get cold at all. But still I was wearing sweaters for many years. I only had a hot water bath. But when Rahu Mahadasha started, I transformed completely. Complete change. I mastered water. I can swim underwater for a length of 50 meters, which is not ordinary task. You cannot do it. Most people cannot do it. And they used to call me, I'm like a fish. I can go underwater. In the sea, in the rivers, everywhere I used to do that. But still I had 3 close calls. In spite of my expertise in water, I almost died 3 times. I've told this to Prahlad, the experience. And I actually felt I'm going to die. I made a mistake. I shouldn't have been here. They were close calls. Even now, I'm afraid of water. A little bit, it scares me. Out of fear, I mastered it. Out of fear, I learned all the things about water. So most of it works. Okay. After my marriage happened, I moved away from my parents. He'll be separated from his relations on account of his wife. So all these things work. But my moon is not completely waning, even though it crossed the sun point. It crossed the full moon, but it was very close to full moon. So actual moon waning, you know when moon waning starts? When you say the moon is waning. Is it truly that the growing phase is from Amavasya onwards and the decreasing phase is from full moon onwards? How many of you think so?
Yes.
Anybody has a different opinion about the moon?
I keep 90 degrees either.
Huh?
90 degrees principle.
90 degrees principle. Okay. I mean 90 to, okay. I think you are using the square idea. So experts in understanding the moon, they say it is not actually really that great in the first few days after Amavasya. It starts gathering strength halfway through, after Ashtami. Some say it is after Panchami. And from full moon, it doesn't lose light so quickly. It takes time. And as it crosses the Ashtami on the Krishna Paksha side, it actually becomes weak. That is when you should use the idea of waning. And of course, we have the greatest tool, the calculation Shadbala, to tell us whether it is really waning or not. Okay. But what did we learn? Yeah.
One strange line that I'm going to read, which is from Saravali.
Okay.
And the entire paragraph is what exactly we discussed, but there's one line which explains what you experienced, and that is for a day birth Shukla Paksha increasing moon, and for the night birth Krishna Paksha declining moon, if the moon is in the 6th or 8th respectively, it will protect the native like his mother. So could that be the reason, Guruji, that it is not always, moon in the 8th is not always bad?
Yeah, that's what. Because you see that in this itself, you see, even though moon is in the 8th, we are reading within that, if the moon is in her own sign or exalted, the native will live long. So you need to have real afflictions on the moon to actually cause the event. Correct?
Yes, Guruji.
Yeah, this is the beauty of astrology. Because it's such a complex thing. Our human life is so complex. We are actually totally free to do whatever we want. And we are trying to predict about human beings, which is the last thing that anybody can do. Suppose all of you find out on which side I'm going to turn my head. I can surprise you by looking up like this, which you never thought. So it's not possible to predict about anybody. But astrology is the best thing that we have. In spite of the complex nature of the human mind, we are able to see so much about human life. But I'm telling you that I actually, in one instant, I thought this is the end of it. I'm going to die in a few minutes because I know what's going to happen next.
All this happened before you became an astrologer, Guruji? Or before you were acquainted with
before I became an astrologer. Yes. All this before I became an astrologer. So I was swimming in Kerala in a river, and I was just going up and down. And when I felt tired, I put my legs down, and it was like a quicksand type. So both the legs went into the mud, and then I didn't know about it. When I tried to pull it, I went a little down, still down, and I'm stuck like gum. I can't actually lift because you need a firm something to push and come out. And the next thing I knew was the water was here. So I'd already kept like this and started shouting for help. A few minutes back, I was like a master of water. I was going up and down like what you see, Olympic swimmer. I can swim so well. The typical way how a professional swimmer will swim, I can swim. Perfect. I learned it from a national swimmer from Anna swimming pool. And yet I was struggling there. And luckily for me, an auto rickshaw driver noticed that I was in trouble and he came and helped me. Okay. And there were 2 more calls like that. One was directly inside a well. I tried to remove the dirt from the pipe. I went down and it got narrowed there. And suddenly something happened. When I reached there, I messed up with my breath. And for a brief second, I thought I'm going to swallow water. And it was so dark, absolute darkness, and right under 40 feet of water. The well was very deep. It was a special well. But it, something told me that nothing's going to happen. I still managed. I remained calm. The moment you take one gulp of water, everything will change. So I know many people. In fact, there was a fantastic article by, I don't know if it's still available on internet, Phyllis Chub, talking about a child who died in water. Very funny that article was. She quoted so many rules, but forgot that the moon is in the 6th in the horoscope. So many things she did a research upon. Throughout that article, not one place did she say Bhrigu had told that if moon is in the, this was a case of 6th house. If moon is in the 6th house, there will be danger from water. In this case, it is 8th house we are reading. And she didn't know that Bhrigu had already said that. And it was exactly in moon's period that the child died. Okay. If you find that article, please let me know. Now I'm not able to locate it. So I've seen this happening, but not necessarily only in moon dasha. It can happen in moon antardasha.
Yeah, sir. My moon is in 8th, but it moves in Dhava.
Oh,
but
if
Rahu
it moves, then it doesn't work.
No, but it worked. Actually, what happened is Rahu is sitting in moon's house.
Okay.
In 9th house, and I fell into a quicksand during Rahu's Mahadasha.
Oh, was there water along?
Experience. There was a water under that quicksand, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I survived like barely. Somebody gave me the cricket bat and pulled me out.
And then pulled you out. Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
My brother.
Thanks for sharing. Yes.
So I had a doubt on this waxing and waning. I mean, we say that once the moon is in the waning side, Krishna Paksha, then it becomes malefic. But you're saying that it doesn't get malefic after till this 8th day?
Yeah. So, no, I'm just giving you a very simple way of understanding it. But many people say it is actually from Panchami onwards, it's Shukla Paksha actually gets activated. It's not from Ashtami Navami, half moon. Even before that, it gets stronger. One of the logics in astrology, throughout astrology, is when it increases, something. The word they use is what is that? Arohana, and when it comes down, Avarohana. Okay, so that has been often used. You have to be very, careful in saying that on the second day, on the first day from Amavasya, the second day, the moon is still not strong. Even in the next day, it is not. It's so thin. So it's all about light. So it is centered around full moon. Either side, it is strong. And it doesn't really become, even though after full moon, the next day is waning, it's not really waning. Okay, but then we don't have, maybe I will try to search for the text. I was also told the same thing from one of my gurus, Sheshadrina Shastrikal. It's actually, this is true of the moon. Okay, then finally, if you want to really check this out, it is only Shadbala which will say whether the moon is strong or not. Okay, because Shadbala takes into account lots of things. I'm just also, while talking to you, I'm searching for a slide where I've prepared about this moon's calculation, but I'm not able to locate that. When I locate it, I'll show you the slide. Okay, so for the time being, we'll say source of danger. Our danger in life is usually 8th house, like close calls. Oh, my thank God, this truck came towards me and I just missed it by the whisker, and so on. And then we also find a trick here that if you know about the planet, the nature of these danger changes. Now, because it is water, and then luckily for me, you also said the conveyance part came because the moon is the lord of the 4th in Kalapurusha. Then we were able to go back and say the sun is the lord of the 5th house. And therefore, maybe that's the reason why he spoke about children. Good. What next? The most difficult 8th house position, Mars. Okay.
Sir, we are talking about moon in 8th. And right now, like in Jagannath Hora, for my time, like moon is in 8th, sir.
So much. Okay. If Mars is in the 8th house, the native will suffer from eye disease again.
Eye diseases again.
Back to normal. Back to the same idea. He will not be long-lived. It reduces lifespan. You understand? So for sun, when he spoke about exaltation of the sun, all that, he said long-lived. So now he's actually giving the reason. He will not be long-lived. It reduces lifespan. Father will die early in native's life. Very difficult. Why does he say Mars is father? Connecting to father. Very difficult. Will suffer from urinary disease. From this, what can you make out?
Because 8th house represents genitals, sir.
Correct. So all these urinary infections, this, that, anything connected to that area could be 8th house. It is better that we know the signification of each house with some reference, rather than trying to make up our own, like keywords. These are more important words because we have proof. Yes, it is urinary.
What is the connection to eye?
Eye, we said, right? Because it looks at the 2nd house, Netrasthana.
Oh. Same logic.
Yes, same logic, Mars. So malefics looking at any house, spoil that house. Benefics looking at a house, improves that house. The same way.
And Guruji, Mars is the 8th lord. So that's why maybe the urinary reason.
Mars is the 8th lord in Kalapurusha. Correct? That's what you're saying.
That's Guruji.
Very good. He will have few children. So here we may have a problem understanding that.
So
suffer
kidney
from
is also 8th house. Is
right?
Kidney also 8th house then?
Kidney is actually 7th house. But it is also 8th house. It is on the border. The 7th and 8th. Because whatever is the kidney's output is connected to the urinary tract. So very difficult to separate it and say 8th house is not kidney. So 8th house could also be indirectly kidney also.
In all these cases, it's only if 8th, like for example, Kanya Lagna, 8th, my wife has that, Mars and 8th, but its own house. Does that make a difference? Because her father is still alive, 90 years old.
Yes. And throughout this, all this textbook, this book or even Parashara's book, you will find own house or exaltation, he always tends to decrease the problem. Understand? We'll wait. We'll find out more.
Guruji, one small doubt. You're talking about exaltation of the 8th Lord being a malefic?
Yeah.
Okay.
Guruji, I've seen similar case where Mars was...
What I'm saying is Mars is exalted in the 8th house.
Okay, but what if Mars was exalted and he was still a lord of the 8th house, but not in the 8th house?
No.
For example, Mars is exalted in the Kalapurusha, in the Kalapurusha 10th house. But if he was to be the lord of the 8th house for that Jataka, then would that exalted Mars bestow beneficial results, or will he still be acting as a malefic? And the scenario is like this. Mars is the 8th lord, but he is exalted. He is happy.
It's actually good.
Okay. So the effects of the 8th house will not be as bad as we generally read.
Yeah. Okay. So when the 8th lord is weak, then the longevity decreases. When the 8th lord is powerful or has some powerful connections, then it improves.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've seen a chart where Mars was with Jupiter, and because of that, the negative effects did not play out.
Mars was with Jupiter. Yes. Whenever Jupiter sits, its connection with the benefic, and that too like Jupiter. So even when Mangal dosha can get cancelled, Kuju dosha can get cancelled because of Guru, Jupiter connection, then maybe every other thing also gets, you get relief from those doshas if Guru is sitting along with it.
Guruji, there is a counter statement in Saravali, counter to what Sai Prahlad is saying.
Okay.
So he says in the book, the author says that there are two authors, Bhatta and Jivanatha. They hint at Mars being more powerful, occupying the 8th in the matter of adversities, defeating even a benefic like Jupiter or Venus in the 9th house.
You're saying more malefic.
Yes, it is more powerful in giving the malefic results. It is even more powerful than a benefic like Jupiter or Venus in the 9th house. So to say the bad effects of Mars in the 8th house will be predominant in spite of good Jupiter, Venus in the 9th house.
Oh.
Which means that it is having more power than Jupiter or Venus, who are in the 9th house. So can we
maybe, I think maybe one of the point here is that such a Jupiter himself is in the 8th house, right? If most probably he might be in the 8th.
Yeah, that was my second derivation. When Sai said, what if he was
derive it, it's like saying Jupiter himself went to the 8th house. So he's not that strong. Because the luck you have in life is when Jupiter is not in 8th and not in 12th.
In spite of Jupiter being in 9th itself, he is being defeated by Mars, but now he is sitting conjoined with Mars in the 8th house. That is where both the authors are saying that it is even more stronger than the Jupiter and Venus in the 9th house.
Okay.
So there is a small
no, but I'll tell you, but you should give more weightage to Bhrigu Sutra. Always give more weightage to Bhrigu Sutra.
Guruji, I heard somewhere that Saravali was before Bhrigu Sutram.
No.
It's after. Okay.
Bhrigu was the first astrologer. There was nobody before Bhrigu.
So Bhrigu comes first and BPHS comes next.
Yes.
Okay.
They even say astrology started from Sage Bhrigu.
Okay, Guruji.
And then Guruji, in this one, it says that if Mars is in 8th, they will have a happy married life. In Bhrigu.
Yeah, that's interesting, actually.
That is very interesting, yeah.
Guruji, in the case that I said, right, for him, the 8th Lord was exalted.
8th Lord is exalted. 8th Lord is exalted.
Okay. That was exactly the question I had asked, Guruji.
see, the idea of the lord of a house is the dispositor idea. Whenever the dispositor is well placed, has got some greater dignity, whatever problems you're talking about that particular house, it'll improve.
Because the
Okay,
landlord is happy.
Now let's get on. He'll have few children, though we are not able to connect it this time. Maybe you can find out. And suffer from rheumatism. So what is rheumatism? Vata. Okay. And rheumatism. What else is there? Shooting pains. Sudden piercing pain. Shooting pains is associated with Mars because Mars is the piercing planet. Okay, sharp pain. But we'll have a happy married life.
Guruji, so about the children part, I mean, see, I think the fourth aspect falls on the 11th house, right? From the 8th.
The fourth aspect falls on the, yeah. See, but Prahlad, we don't have to actually find out, we don't have to strain ourselves to find out why the Rishi said something. One simple way is to simply, we can always accept it as it is without trying to find the logics. I mean, that is one idea. But wherever we find the logic, it's great. Otherwise, we simply read it. Because when you try to connect it somehow or the other and try to derive, some explanation, it's not a good practice. Okay.
But see, the fourth aspect is on the 11th. So that means the desire part, which is of children and all that, 11th house is important for children. So that gets a hit. And maybe that could be the reason as to why he said.
Yeah, and possible, because I think those days wanting children might have been, one of the, the desires, right? Yeah, possible. Suffer from rheumatism, Vata Rogi or something. Because Mars is a Vata Pitta Graha. It's not completely Vata alone. And in conjunction with the benefic, the native will enjoy good health and be long-lived. Okay.
Guruji, maybe like Vata problem is like having a discomfort, right?
Yeah, Vata is pain.
Yeah, so that's because I think the okay, never mind.
So Mars gives a pain because Mars could be like you injured people in your past life. Mars is about war and so on. So something from the past life is coming back in the form of pain. The only thing we are not able to explain is why the happy married life. Because it causes Kujadosha. But for Kujadosha to have a happy marriage, the person has to marry a person having Kujadosha, then it gets cancelled. Maybe in such situations, it will give them a happy married life. But we fail to see the logic here on what could be, why does he talk about marriage?
Maybe there's a lot of energy on the 8th house.
Okay. And that is saving the happy marriage. I mean, that's giving the happy marriage. Okay. Like we discussed about Mars yesterday. Okay.
But then he has few children. So it's very mixed, Guruji, in Bhrigu Sutram, that comment section. Mars in this house will cause damage to the family. He will therefore have few children. So it's a bit
that we are looking at the 7th aspect, right? So it's looking at the 2nd house. So that's a reduction of family or problem there.
I think happy married life, we just have to leave it alone and take it as it is. There is
correct.
Yeah, maybe there would be some other reason. Maybe he wanted to say that if this Mars is influenced by some Shubha Grahas, then it's going to give them happy married life. And do not know the context in which he is talking about why the marriage portion is coming here.
Well, if it is with Shubha Graha, then I think the spouse's family will be happy, so you're happy. So.
If Mars is in the house of malefic or associated with the malefic, the native will suffer from rheumatism. So, if it is in a benefic house like Jupiter's house or Venus house, it gets better. But in the malefic house, it gets more troublesome, more rheumatism and urinary troubles and etc. So you know from this that the 8th house is so much about pain and vata, chronic diseases. I mean, the picture is emerging very well. The span of life will be medium. So it's an indirect way of saying the calculation of lifespan is to be known from the 8th house. The span of life will be medium. Malefics in the 8th is reducing it. At least to some, we'll have some exceptions soon. If the Lord of the 8th is powerful, the native will have full longevity. I think when he says Lord of 8th is powerful, maybe he's talking about exaltation or own house, or maybe Shadbala, it is extremely strong, well placed, etc. Then you have full lifespan. What would happen if the 8th Lord is powerful without Mars in the 8th? Then it will be longer life, right? 8th Lord in Kendra, Maharishi Parashara says, long life.
According to Jataka Tattvam, there are some points which I have pasted, Guruji.
Very good. I will also keep looking at it.
Unfortunately, it's a long text, so I have to split it into two.
Okay.
Sir, how about 8th Lord in 3rd?
8th Lord in?
3rd.
8th Lord in 3rd. What do you expect? Because 8th is... okay, 3rd is what?
Viparita Yoga.
Co-bounds.
Huh?
Problems with co-bounds.
Correct. Something to do with disappointment, right? Because 3rd is our help, our sahodara, sahaya, and so on.
But from context of longevity, so 3rd house is Markasthana, right? And if 8th Lord is in 3rd, then what is that? What can we infer? Is there anything we can infer?
It says good for longevity because 3rd house is also connected to longevity, right?
Correct.
It's not Marcus, right? Sir?
Yes, like I said, Marka. Yeah,
what does the Bhava Lord sloka say if the 8th Lord is in 3rd?
I mean, problem with your servants, your brother, siblings, and 3rd house is house of strength. You lack strength.
What is the question, Guruji?
Sir.
Negative.
Sir, it's actually, sir, what it says is, I am reading, it says it adds double the energies of 8. If 8th Lord is in 3rd, it doubles the energies of 8th house. It's a special Bhavat Bhavan connection and linkage. These houses from this combination provide a native a lot of aggression, physical strength, especially if the 8th ruler is natural malefic.
Where is it taken from?
Yeah, where is it taken?
Let me check the book.
It's
in
not
fact, no, Guruji, the same point is mentioned. The same point is mentioned in the paste which I did just now, the second paste, and it says if the lords of the Lagna, the 8th and the 10th. No. If benefics are in the 6th, the 8th, and 7th signs, and malefics in the 3rd, 6th, and 11th signs, then it's a long life.
No, that is different.
That's different.
No, that's different.
What was the question actually?
The question is, I don't know who asked. It is about 8th Lord in the 3rd. 8th Lord in the 3rd is bad combination. Yeah.
Rahulji, what was your question?
8th Lord in 3rd.
8th Lord in 3rd is bad.
8th Lord in 3rd, the actual text is Sahodara dosha, lazy and no servants.
Yeah,
and no
devoid of strength. Something like that. Because 3rd means your own hands, your effort, and 8th is disappointment. You're not taking effort. You're not brave. You're not fighting back. Those kind of things.
Oh, sir, the thing I was reading was Bhavat Bhavam principle. So let me share this article. I don't know which book is this. It's in the website.
Yeah.
See, but in almost all of these, there's always exceptions, right? Because even again for Kanya Lagna, 8th Lord in 3rd is both a Mars.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. That time it will become different because then it is in his own house.
Yeah.
I have an interesting discussion regarding that. So it is from the book Upadesha Sutras.
Upadesha Sutras, okay.
Jaiminis,
okay. Commentaries. Yes. So basically, even when you read any line like this, there will be exceptions because of what Krishna just now mentioned. Because the position won't be the same. So you have to keep an eye on all that.
No, that is exactly what was mentioned in the book, and that is the reason why I remembered.
Okay.
He says that if the lords of the 1st and the 8th are both
the same
planet. Okay, both in dual signs. I mean, it's the first condition is if the lords of the 1st and 8th are both in movable, or if one is in a fixed and the other is in a dual, long life is indicated. That is the first point, but that was not the point I had in mind. The other point which says that if the lords of the 1st and 8th are both in dual signs, or if one is in a fixed sign and the other in a movable sign, a middle lifespan is indicated. Then he comes to this exact logical point, which he says, for those signs, the 8th house from the lord of the sign would have to be taken as the lord of the ascendant, and the 8th house are one and the same. And he says, example,
of longevity actually. Form the of longevity.
Yeah, no, the 8th house reckoner.
8th Lord.
It's the 8th house reckoner. He says it has to change. We can't take the 8th house. If the 8th and the ascendant lords are still the same, the 8th from these signs will replace them. He says, if, however, the 8th and the ascendant lords are still the same, and he gives an example. For example, if Mars is in Aries, in the ascendant, the 8th house is Scorpio, and its lord will be Mars. Hence, the 8th from Scorpio, that is Sagittarius, should be considered, and its lord Jupiter becomes the 8th lord.
These are exceptional rules, right? We'll have to use them sparingly.
Do we use this only for longevity, Guruji? Or do we also use it for other calculations?
Longevity is actually
I don't know if you can go because it says 10 days be away.
Huh?
What?
I think his mic was on when he was talking.
So sorry. Yeah, I had my mic on. Sorry.
Okay. Mercury in 8th house. So the native will have a good span of life. So its 8th house is more about calculation of the length of life, the longevity. And from that point of view, it is truly the Ayush Sthan. With the owner of large area of land. What could be this area of land? Is it by inheritance? Could be through inheritance, right? Because we know that the 8th house is the house of inheritance.
But can we also use the previous logic, Dhilip? Benefic aspecting an second house?
Okay. Yeah.
That's what we used for sun, right?
Okay. Because you're looking at the second house. But the land part is being covered, I think, because of some kind of inheritance inbuilt into the 8th house. So suddenly comes up with a very rare possibility, the Sapta Putrava. There will be 7 children. In his 25th year, he will receive respect and honor in many ways and will get widespread name and fame. So it looks like Mercury in the 8th is good. Right?
Correct. Mostly
Guruji,
good.
even if it is the Lagna Lord?
I think, sir,
Being the Lagna Lord is only
Mercury-
going to make it better, right?
Right.
No, I think you are hinting at what if it becomes Lagna Lord in the 8th house. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, Guruji.
Okay. See, when you add other dimensions to it, you'll have to, of whatever good has been stated, you should
Stack
start,
up.
stack up method, you should start
stack up.
decreasing it because it becomes the Lagna Lord, or maybe an important Lord has gone to the 8th house as Mercury. This is about only the placement. Maybe if you think having 7 children is a good thing, I don't know. It will be 7 times, problematic.
Guruji, I think it's because Mercury is aspecting the second house. Is that to be the logic why there's more family multiplying in the family?
Maybe Mercury is about multiplication, duplicating, many, repetition, more.
Oh, and also Guruji replicating the significance of the 8th house, whether it be inheritance, whether it be on the bed, sexual, whatever. So Mercury is duplicating the 8th house, significations of the 8th house and the second house.
Okay. Good.
So, sorry, we did change something like if the 8th Lord is in Rashi Parvartana, let's say Mercury is the 8th Lord, let's say, for example, like Scorpio, right? And Mercury sitting in 3rd house, it is in Rashi Parvartana with Saturn, or maybe in 4th house, but with and Saturn sitting in 11th house. There is a Rashi Parvartana, but in the Bhava chart, they changes. So will that change something with the 8th Lord?
Mercury
Rashi Parvartana happens very rarely, right?
What's the question?
So the question is, if the 8th Lord is in Rashi Parvartana, let's say with the 4th Lord.
8th and 4th, okay.
Yeah, so the 8th Lord, basically, so the 4th Lord is sitting in 11th, and the 11th Lord is sitting in 4th. I'm taking example of Scorpio ascendant.
What you're saying is one set of bad parivartana, another set of good parivartana.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, it will affect the negative parivartana and it will boost up the positive parivartana.
Again, stack up. We have to use the stack up, right?
Correct.
How come Mercury in the 8th doesn't talk about whether Mercury is a benefic or a malefic? Because it's supposed to be depending on how it is associated, it changes its nature, right? But none of the slokas mention anything about that.
Ask him.
Sir, I was asking a question around the nature of Mercury, whether it's malefic or benefic, is not mentioned here, depending on how Mercury is associated with other planets.
Maybe when he's saying good things about Mercury, he's expecting that the Mercury in the horoscope is not afflicted by malefics or not connected to malefics, natural malefics. Mercury is Shubha Graha if connected to Shubha, or without any malefic influence, he is considered a Shubha Graha. But Mercury associated with bad planets, Krura Grahas, it will become bad. So whenever he says good things, we should take it and we should accept it that maybe he is saying that in this horoscope, Mercury is not conjunct a malefic. Because only when you say good things about something, it should be more benefic in nature. What if Mercury is in the 8th house in exaltation? Okay.
The only malefic mention is in that last line.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. We'll find out. Okay. So in his 25th year, respect and honor in many ways, widespread fame and reputation.
Where does fame and reputation come from?
We can't understand that. Maybe something to do with sudden name and fame.
Sir, could it be that 7th house is also for your public, what your persona before the public, and 8th house is the longevity of the 2nd house? So good planets there, or maybe even for Sun, that was their Sun is government being in the 8th house, being second to the 7th. Would that be something for fame?
Maybe. Only when you do more research, we can confirm that. Whether the logic that you used was what they also used, because the 7th house is kind of your meetings, the people who you meet. These are the people who make you famous also. Yeah. So now he comes up with the next statement. If the Lord of the 8th is strong, or if the Lord of the 8th is in a sign of exaltation and associated with the benefic, the native will be assured of full lifespan. So this is a very uniform method that is been using, no matter what planet is in the 8th house. The strength of the 8th Lord in terms of exaltation or with benefic improves the lifespan. Okay. If the Lord of the 8th is in a sign of debilitation, the opposite, and is associated with malefic. He is not talking about Mercury here. So that means he must have assumed that Mercury is well placed when he mentioned these things. And when Mercury is afflicted, we cannot trust these things. We cannot say Mercury is in the 8th house, so you must have 5, 7 children. Most probably Mercury is afflicted, and therefore fewer number of children will happen. And maybe even the 25th year, respect and honor in many ways may not work. We need to do a lot of research with other, sample horoscopes of people who had Mercury in the 8th house and try to find out if they got some special things in their life when they're 25th, during their 25th year. If the Lord of the 8th is in the sign of debilitation and associated with malefic, the native will have a short life. If Mercury is in the 8th house. Okay. So I think we'll continue again in the next class. And we are going to do this for a longer period, because we have to connect all these 8th house to so many other rules and try to come up with some firm rules for longevity. So now we are at Mercury. We finished with Mercury, and next class we will continue from Mercury. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Yes.
Thank you.
Guruji, if I come across something interesting and important, can I mail it to you, Guruji?
Yes, you can.
Is it the one which we used for which you sent the messages from Patreon, right? EKDK.
Yes, just by my full name at gmail.com.
Yeah, that one. Okay.
EKDhilipkumar@gmail.com.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Okay, Guruji.
Sir,
And anyone else has anything to say about what was discussed today, you can always send me a WhatsApp message. Maybe we can include it in our next class discussions. I found out maybe we could have used this logic, or I have a few examples of horoscopes where actually, it explains a lot. I have seen Mars in the 8th, so much connected to the final disease to urinary tract and kidney. Most of the time are lots of problem in the 8th house area with Mars. And most of the political assassinations were connected to Mars, somehow connecting to the 8th house. You can check it out in as many horoscopes as you want. It is very strong. Okay, so there were some rules about Mars connection with the 8th house. Okay. Do you want one of you can collect some 10 horoscopes of political assassination and try to find a common pattern in this and make a presentation? Anybody is willing, or maybe 2 or 3 people join together and do it also. If you have any message to be shared, you can send me a message. I can share it on Patreon, and you can form a group for research on political assassination versus Mars connection to the 8th house. You'll be surprised.
Yes.
Yeah.
Why not we do just the 8th house itself, Guruji, the striking 8th house effects based on the lords of the 8th house, the dignity of the 8th house lords.
Yeah, you can also try to connect 8th house in several ways, because suddenly one of us mentioned, what happens if 8th lord is in the 2nd house? I mean, it will give us some clues about what the 8th house is, right? If you keep an eye on the lords of the 8th in various houses.
Okay,
definitely it will give. Also, when you go through the Dashadhyaya, but that is the problem. There is Maharishi combines everything into 6, 8, and 12 formula, and sometimes he exempts 6 out totally. He only talks about 8 and 12 all the time. Uniform thing is 8 and 12. Sometimes 6th gets exempted. Keep an eye on that. So the true in Dasha method of reading, planets placed in 8 and 12 is really trouble, both from ascendant and also from Dashanath. Okay.
Main emphasis on the Bhava chart.
Yes, Bhava chart. Yes.
Okay.
You can. I think most of you are on our WhatsApp group. If you want to do any research on assassination, you can prepare and maybe do a presentation the coming week. Okay, it can be a very short presentation. Then we'll go back to the class.
So Guruji, I know you always have a secondary thing about the Gochara, but for any of this, would that be a timing thing in terms of for an action to occur? If your Shani, let's say it's in 6th or 3rd or something, will whatever is indicated may get delayed or will not happen during that phase?
Yeah,
but maybe
transit definitely has, but it takes us to one more dimension, makes it very complex. So to get all these bricks in place, we need to go slow, and then when we can maybe at a later stage, we can bring in the transits. Right now, we can keep transits away for some time because the transits are surely, what you can say, like a trigger. It triggers an event. But it triggers what event? It triggers an event that was already slated to happen. It cannot create an event that was not meant to happen, to be. It must have been indicated. Only then a trigger will work. So transits we'll study separately at a later stage. With the same horoscope, we can do it. When you're doing, let's say, political assassination, 10 horoscopes, we'll find out when the actual assassination happened. We'll try to relate it to transit. We'll have maybe somebody can share the horoscope from the software and show all the possibilities of transit also. Okay. So let's stop at this point. We'll catch up again next week.
Thank you, Guruji.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
For all of you contributed points. I'll also keep a note on what you typed. When I'm doing the editing, I'll notice it. Guna Sitaraman, yes, he is a newcomer. You can join our WhatsApp group. I'll send you an invite. and you can all be together. So this is a project connecting to 8th house. Therefore, I picked up one offshoot from this as assassination, because 8th house is truly the house of sudden death. Okay, danger to life. Thank you.
I just wanted to add, Guruji, earlier that you had mentioned for 6th house, it is a pretty tricky house for like with Mars and Venus in it, right? Like Mars in 6th house and then Venus in 6th house is very unexpected. So I just wanted to add that point.
Okay.
You look at Putin's chart and see how it looks.
Really? Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, sir.
Bye.